The waiting room at Naval Medical Center San Diego held 43 veterans that Monday morning in early March 2025. 42 men and one woman who didn't want to be there. Sloan Catherine Barrett sat in the third row, spine straight against the plastic chair. 29 years old, 5'3" in her Navy working uniform. 118 pounds of discipline wrapped in a frame most people underestimated. Blonde hair pulled back regulation tight. Blue eyes that tracked movement with the precision of someone trained to notice what others missed. She'd been avoiding this appointment for 3 years. Different excuses each time. Schedule conflicts, deployment rotations, minor illnesses timed perfectly to cancel physicals. Anything to avoid the moment when someone would see what she'd hidden for over a decade. But the new Veterans Wellness Program was mandatory. No exceptions, no postponements. Even for petty officers first class who'd rather eat glass than expose their secrets. The check-in screen cycled through names. Johnson, Patterson, Mackenzie. The room smelled like government coffee and the particular anxiety of men waiting for their bodies to confess what their minds already knew. Korea veterans with trembling hands. Vietnam vets with 1,000-yard stares. Desert Storm alumni favoring old injuries. Afghanistan and Iraq veterans still young enough to pretend they were fine. Sloan scanned the room without appearing to. Old training. Dangerous training. The Marine in the corner compensating for a bad left knee. The sailor 3 seats down, hiding withdrawal tremors under a newspaper. The soldier by the window calculating exits and fields of fire. She recognized the patterns because she shared them. The screen changed. Barrett SK. She rose smoothly. No hesitation that might draw attention. 11 years of service had taught her to be invisible when it mattered. The corpsman who blended into medical facilities. The petty officer who never caused problems. The woman who kept her head down and her history buried. But some histories refused to stay underground, especially when they were carved into flesh. Room 3B waited at the end of a sterile corridor. Standard exam room. Clinical white walls that had witnessed a million confessions of human frailty. Blood pressure cuff hanging like an instrument of truth. Anatomical charts showing muscles and bones that Sloan had memorized in Hospital Corpsman A school 11 years ago. Lieutenant Commander Reynolds entered with a tablet and the practiced smile of a physician who'd performed this routine 10,000 times. Mid-40s, graying at the temples. Wedding ring worn smooth from years of nervous fidgeting. The kind of doctor who'd seen enough to be competent, but not so much to be cynical. Petty Officer Barrett, he glanced at the screen. HM1, 11 years active duty, currently assigned to, his eyebrows rose slightly. SEAL Team 3. Yes, sir. How long with the team? 2 weeks, sir. Reynolds made notes. Annual wishfulness screening, standard protocol for all veterans in the program. Any current complaints, injuries I should know about? No, sir. Medications? No, sir. Known allergies? No, sir. Reynolds looked up, actually looked at her instead of the tablet. You're cleared for full duty with a SEAL team at a 5'3". Sloan held his gaze, steady, unflinching. I exceed all physical standards required by the Navy, sir. I'm sure you do. He set the tablet on the counter. All right, let's begin with vitals. I'll need you to remove your blouse for cardiac and pulmonary examination. Sloan's hands stopped halfway to the first button. This was the moment, the one she'd choreographed a dozen ways to avoid. Winter appointments when long sleeves were justified, female physicians who didn't question, carefully timed conflicts that made thorough exams impossible. But today there were no exits, no excuses, just a male physician following protocol and a secret that lived on her skin. Her fingers found the buttons. One by one, the blouse came off, navy t-shirt underneath, standard issue, but t-shirts only hid so much. Reynolds moved behind her, stethoscope ready. Deep breath, she inhaled, held it, released. Again, the cold metal pressed against her back. Professional, routine. She'd performed this exam hundreds of times as a corpsman. Being on the receiving end felt invasive in ways she couldn't articulate. Good, one more. Wait. Reynolds' hand stopped mid-movement. 3 seconds of silence. 4, 5. Petty Officer Barrett. His voice had changed, the routine politeness replaced by clinical curiosity. I need you to remove your t-shirt. Ma, sir, the cardiac examination doesn't require. I found something. Need to examine it properly. Remove your shirt, please. No choice. No escape. Sloan pulled the t-shirt over her head. The scar sat high on her left shoulder. Entry wound anterior. Exit wound posterior. The kind of injury that told a complete story to anyone trained to read trauma. Clean edges where military surgeons had debrided tissue. Surgical precision in the scarring. The work of professionals who'd saved the limb and possibly the life. But it was the size that made Reynolds go very still. He moved to face her, eyes fixed on the scar. Then he did something unusual. He measured the entry wound with his fingers, approximating diameter, calculating trajectory based on the exit wound's position. This is a gunshot wound, high-powered rifle. His voice carried certainty. The entry diameter. This is .338 caliber, possibly .338 Lapua Magnum. Sloan said nothing. Petty officer, that's a sniper rifle cartridge. How did a Navy corpsman? The door opened without warning. Admiral James Morrison stepped into the exam room like a change in atmospheric pressure. 68 years old. 6'2" with shoulders that still remembered 40 years of ruck marches. Silver hair cut high and tight. Eyes that had made hard decisions in dark places and lived with the consequences. He was conducting his quarterly review of the Veterans Wellness Program, shaking hands, thanking medical staff, being the public face of Navy medicine's commitment to those who'd served. He glanced at Reynolds, glanced at Sloan. His eyes found the scar. Everything stopped. Morrison's face cycled through 3 distinct expressions in less than 2 seconds. Recognition. Shock. Something that looked like grief tangled with pride. Barrett. The name came out rough, uncertain. Sloan Barrett. Sloan snapped to attention despite being shirtless. Sir. Morrison moved closer, not threatening, careful, like approaching something precious and fragile and potentially explosive all at once. That scar. He didn't touch it, didn't need to. The size and position told him everything. Mike taught you to shoot. Not a question, a statement loaded with history. Sloan's throat worked. Yes, sir. Reynolds looked between them, clearly lost. Admiral, do you know this petty officer? Doctor. Morrison's voice carried the weight of 4 decades of command. I need 5 minutes alone with Petty Officer Barrett. Sir, I'm in the middle of an examination. 5 minutes. Reynolds recognized an order when he heard one. He left. The door clicked shut with the finality of a vault ceiling. Morrison and Sloan stood 3 feet apart, the space between them heavy with everything unspoken. With a funeral 13 years ago, where he'd handed a folded flag to a widow and her daughter, where he'd looked at a 16-year-old girl with her arm in a sling and eyes that had already seen too much. Mike Barrett. Morrison's voice softened to something almost gentle. Gunnery Sergeant Michael Barrett, 2nd Battalion 5th Marines, Scout Sniper Platoon. 78 confirmed kills across 3 deployments. Best shot I ever witnessed. Best friend I ever had. You were at the funeral, sir. Sloan's words came quiet, controlled. You gave my mother the flag. I was 16, just finished my junior year of high school, arm in this same sling. I remember, the accident that gave you that scar happened 6 months before Mike died. Training accident. The rifle malfunctioned during one of your sessions. Fragment went straight through. You were lucky to keep the arm. I was lucky to be alive. Mike blamed himself. Told me he should have checked the rifle more carefully. Should have seen the signs of metal fatigue. Morrison paused. He also told me that after you recovered, you made your mother a promise that you'd never touch a gun again. Sloan's jaw tightened. 11 years of therapy, 11 years of telling herself she'd made peace with her father's death. And still the anger lived right beneath her ribs like shrapnel too close to vital organs to remove. If he felt so guilty, why did he keep deploying? Why did he leave us 6 months later? The question came out sharper than intended. Rawer. Morrison didn't flinch. Because men like Mike don't know how to stop. We tell ourselves we're protecting others, that we're the only ones skilled enough to do the job, that our knowledge, our experience, they're too valuable to waste on the sidelines. He paused. It's a lie we tell ourselves so we can keep doing the only thing we know how to do. He died doing that thing. He did. Helmand Province, October 2012. IED, ambush, followed by coordinated small arms fire. He was providing overwatch for a patrol, spotted the trap, called it in, stayed on station to cover the withdrawal, took fire from multiple positions, got every Marine out, except himself. Except himself. Morrison carried the weight of that truth in his voice. His last radio transmission was 4 words. Marines are clear, out. Sloan closed her eyes. Breathed through the tightness in her chest, opened them. I joined the Navy in 2014, 2 years after he died. Hospital corpsman. I've served 11 years, good evaluations, no disciplinary issues, multiple deployments. I've done everything right, everything he would have wanted. I heal people. I keep my promise to Mom. And nobody knows you can shoot. Nobody, sir. Morrison studied her face. Until now. Until now. What's your current assignment? SEAL Team 3. Started 2 weeks ago. Something shifted in Morrison's expression. Memory. Recognition. Team 3, that was my team 30 years ago. Commander now is Blake Hawkins. Solid officer. Former enlisted who earned his commission the hard way. He'll work you hard, but he'll keep you as safe as anyone can in that line of work. I don't need special. Everyone needs someone watching their six. Morrison's tone left no room for argument, especially when they're carrying secrets that could get them killed. Sloan, I'm going to ask you something. Think very carefully before you answer. She waited. If your team needs you, really needs you, not Sloan the corpsman, but Sloan the shooter, the girl Mike Barrett spent 4 years training, the one who knows ballistics and wind drift and how to compensate for the Coriolis effect at 1,200 meters. If they need that, Sloan, and the only thing stopping you is a promise you made when you were 16 years old and drowning in grief, what are you going to do? The question hung in the sterile air. Sloan looked at the scar in the mirror across from her. Entry wound, exit wound, the permanent reminder of the day the rifle malfunctioned. The day she almost died learning to do the thing her father needed her to understand. I don't know, sir. Yes, you do. Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. You know exactly what you'll do. Same thing Mike would have done. Same thing every person who's ever worn this uniform does when the critical moment arrives. You'll do what's necessary. The promise will break and you'll live with it because living with a broken promise is easier than living with dead teammates you could have saved. Sloan met his eyes. Is that what you did, sir? More times than I can count. He smiled without humor. Welcome to the club nobody wants to join. We meet every night at 0300 when sleep won't come. Morrison moved toward the door, stopped, turned back. Mike used to say something about why he taught you to shoot despite your mother's concerns. He said, I'm not teaching her to kill. I'm teaching her to protect. And someday someone's going to need protecting, and my little girl is going to be the only one who can do it. Morrison's hand rested on the door handle. I think that day is coming, Sloan, probably soon. When it arrives, don't hesitate. Mike wouldn't want you to. Sir, Sloan's voice stopped him. Thank you for being there at the funeral. It mattered. He was my brother. You're his daughter. That makes you family. Morrison opened the door. Keep in touch. If you need anything, advice, a sympathetic ear, someone to run interference with, command, you call me. Anything. Clear. Clear, sir. He left. Reynolds returned moments later. Professional mask back in place. Finished the exam without mentioning the scar again. Cleared her for full duty. Sent her on her way with paperwork and a follow-up appointment she wouldn't need. Sloan dressed in silence. Buttoned her blouse. Tucked in her shirt. Adjusted her belt. In the mirror, she looked like every other sailor leaving a routine medical appointment. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Someone new. And secrets once shared developed their own momentum. SEAL Team 3's compound sat on Naval Amphibious Base Coronado like a fortress built from necessity and sweat. Concrete barriers, chain link fencing, buildings that had weathered decades of salt air and hard use. The Pacific Ocean stretched beyond where BUD/S students learned that comfort was temporary and pain was educational. Sloan had been assigned here for exactly 14 days, long enough to learn the layout, short enough that she still felt like an outsider waiting for permission to enter. Tuesday morning, 0800, the briefing room smelled like coffee gun oil and the particular musk of men who considered 5-mile runs a warm-up. 12 operators filled the chairs. 11 heads turned when she entered. Commander Blake Hawkins stood at the front. 44 years old, face weathered by 2 decades of hard decisions and harder conditions. Eyes that cataloged everything and forgot nothing. 22 years in service. 3 combat deployments with Team 3 alone, the kind of leader who'd earned respect the expensive way. Petty Officer Barrett, right on time. Take a seat. Sloan moved to the back row, the corpsman's traditional position. Close enough to respond to casualties. Far enough to stay out of the operational planning. Gentlemen, Hawkins' voice cut through the low conversations. This is HM1 Sloan Barrett. Our new corpsman, 11 years active duty, 3 combat deployments, Afghanistan twice, Iraq once, combat medicine certified, tactical casualty care instructor qualified. She comes with strong recommendations from Naval Medical. Silence. 12 pairs of eyes evaluated her with the clinical detachment of professionals measuring risk versus benefit. Chief Warrant Officer Hayes spoke first. 50 years old, former Marine who'd gone Navy for reasons he never explained. Everyone called him Gunny because muscle memory lasted longer than the service affiliation. 5'3", his voice carried the gravel of cigarettes he'd quit a decade ago. No disrespect intended, Doc, but can you carry a 60-pound medical pack in full kit? Yes, Chief. Plus body armor, plates front and back. Yes, Chief. Plus ammunition, water, personal gear. Yes, Chief. Gunny leaned back in his chair. We'll find out Friday. Senior Chief Petty Officer Wade Hollister sat 2 seats down, 48 years old, quiet in the way of men who'd seen too much and learned that words rarely helped. They called him Stone because emotion never showed on his face, never rushed, never cracked. Stone said nothing, just watched her with eyes that seemed to calculate trajectories and probabilities. Petty Officer First Class Declan Briggs sprawled in his chair like he owned the real estate. 32 years old, red hair, freckles that made him look younger than his file suggested. Voice that carried 3 rows farther than necessary. They called him Frost because of how cold he became in combat. Right now, he just looked skeptical. The corpsman before you was 6'1", 190. Frost didn't bother hiding his doubt. He struggled with the physical demands. No offense, but you're small, Sloan finished. I'm aware, I'll manage. We're not carrying you if you fall behind, Frost said to his teammate, Petty Officer Dylan Garrett. Just establishing expectations. Hawkins cut through the commentary. Barrett has exceeded every physical standard the Navy requires for her rating. She's here because she earned it. Whether she stays depends on her performance. Same standard we apply to everyone. He looked directly at Sloan. Clear, Petty Officer. Crystal, sir. Good. Integration brief Thursday. Pete tomorrow at 0530. Ruck, March Friday, 12 miles, full kit. Questions. Silence. Dismissed. The team filed out. Sloan stayed behind pretending to review medical protocols on her tablet that she'd memorized years ago. Stone paused at the door, looked back. Barrett. Yes, Senior Chief. Welcome to the team. Don't let Frost get under your skin. He tests everyone. Understood, Senior Chief. Stone studied her for another moment, like he was seeing something beneath the surface. Then he left. Sloan sat alone in the empty briefing room. Thought about Morrison's words, about promises made and promises that would break, about the moment coming fast when she'd have to choose. Wednesday, 0530, the sky still dark over Coronado, the air cold enough to remind everyone that Southern California had seasons, just subtle ones. 12 operators and 1 corpsman lined up for PT. The standard SEAL warm-up that separated professionals from pretenders. 2-mile run, calisthenics, buddy carries, partner drills, the choreography of combat fitness. Sloan kept pace, not at the front where Frost and Garrett pushed the tempo, not at the back where struggling would be noticed. Middle of the pack, breathing controlled, energy conserved. She heard Frost's voice carrying back to where Garrett ran beside him. $20 says she falls out on the ruck March Friday. She's made it 2 weeks. 2 weeks isn't 12 miles with full kit in the California desert. Sloan said nothing. Conserved oxygen. Words wouldn't prove anything. Only performance mattered. Friday arrived with clear skies and rising heat. 12-mile ruck march. 60-pound pack minimum. Full kit. Desert terrain east of the base where the temperature would climb toward 95 by noon. The team assembled at 0600. Sun already climbing. Heat building. Sloan adjusted her pack one final time. Medical supplies, IV fluids, combat gauze, tourniquets, chest seals, hemostatic agents. Everything needed to keep someone alive when their body wanted to quit. 62 pounds total on a frame built for 118. The first mile was easy. The second routine. Mile 4, her shoulders started the conversation with her nervous system about load distribution. Mile 6, her hips joined the complaint. Mile 8, every step became a negotiation between will and biology. But she'd made worse negotiations. In corpsman school, carrying 200-pound dummies through obstacle courses. In field training, treating simulated casualties while instructors threw smoke grenades and fired blanks overhead. In real deployments, moving wounded men twice her size because the alternative was watching them die. Pain was temporary. Failure was permanent. Mile 12. The finish line. 2 hours 41 minutes. Not the fastest time. Frost and Garrett had finished 18 minutes earlier. Stone and Gunny 12 minutes ahead. But she'd finished within standard, without assistance, without falling out. Hawkins checked his watch when she crossed, nodded once. One. Acceptable, Barrett. Gunny approached, handed her a water bottle. You can walk with the weight. That's something, but walking isn't fighting. Understood, Chief. We'll see how you perform when people shoot back. Monday, weapons qualification day. The range set 20 miles inland, away from civilian populations and their concerns about noise. Targets at 50 meters, 100, 300. The smell of cordite and hot brass. The sharp crack of controlled violence. Sloan qualified with the Beretta M9. Pistol only. Her military occupational specialty didn't authorize rifle training. Corpsman carried sidearms for self-defense, not offensive operations. 40 rounds, 40 hits, expert marksmanship rating. Gunny watched from the observation booth, raised an eyebrow at the tight grouping. Doc can shoot a pistol. Hawkins nodded, made a note. Good to know if things get close. The operators moved to rifle qualifications. M4 carbines first. Then the serious work. The M40A5 sniper rifle. Sloan stood behind the firing line, supposedly observing, actually remembering. The rifle looked familiar, too familiar. Same model her father had used, same stock design, same scope mounting system, same balance and weight distribution. Her fingers twitched involuntarily. Muscle memory from 1,000 hours of training. From lying prone in New Mexico desert learning to read wind. From her father's voice in her ear or teaching the breathing cycle that synced with cardiac rhythm. Stone was shooting. 600 meters. Standard NATO chest-sized target. First shot. Miss. Left edge by 8 inches. Sloan's lips moved. Barely audible. Wind pushing left. Compensate right shoulder. Stone made the adjustment. Second shot. Center mass. Senior Chief Wade Hollister stood 5 feet from Sloan. Close enough to hear the whisper. His head turned slightly. Eyes found hers. Sloan looked away. Too late. Stone fired 4 more rounds. All hits. Respectable grouping for 600 meters. When he came off the line, Stone passed close enough to Sloan to murmur without others hearing. Thanks for the wind call, Doc. Sloan kept her face neutral, said nothing, but Stone knew, and men like Stone filed information away for later use. Thursday afternoon, medical drill, tactical combat casualty care. The scenario that separated corpsmen who'd memorized textbooks from corpsmen who'd actually worked trauma under fire. The setup simulated IED blast. 2 casualties with realistic wounds. Limited supplies. Hostile environment simulated by an instructor firing blanks and throwing smoke grenades. Sloan moved on pure instinct. Casualty 1. Severed femoral artery. Massive hemorrhaging. She had 90 seconds before shock set in. 2 minutes before death. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. Tourniquet from her pack. Positioned high on the thigh above the wound. Wrapped once. Threaded through the buckle. Windlass rod inserted. She twisted hard. Casualty 1 screamed realistic acting from the role player. Sloan kept twisting. Each rotation tightened the band, compressed the artery, transformed the bright red spray into a trickle. 3 full turns. 4. The bleeding stopped. 19 seconds from identification to secured tourniquet. Standard protocol allowed 30. Casualty 2. Tension pneumothorax. Air trapped in the chest cavity. Collapsing the lung, killing the patient slowly. Needle decompression. Second intercostal space. Mid-clavicular line. 14-gauge needle. She felt for the landmarks through the training vest. Located the insertion point. Pushed the needle through. Pop. Air hissed out. Pressure released. Breathing restored. IV line next while the instructor maintained simulated hostile fire. Combat gauze for additional wounds. Morphine for pain management. All while smoke obscured vision and blank rounds cracked overhead. When the drill ended, Gunny stood over the casualties. Checked her work. Checked her times. Damn good, Doc. Best I've seen from a new team member. Hawkins nodded approval. Barrett knows her craft. Frost leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Watching, evaluating. Medical skills are fine. Necessary even. But we need operators who can fight back when things go kinetic. Combat medic isn't combat operator. The words carried across the drill yard, meant to be heard. Sloan heard them, filed them away. No anger, no wounded pride, just data. She understood the concern. They'd lost corpsmen before. Good ones. Brave ones. Corpsmen who could save lives but couldn't return fire when the shooting started. Who became liabilities instead of assets in close combat. They were asking the fundamental question every team asked, will you get us killed? Fair question, one she couldn't answer with words, only with actions. And actions were coming faster than any of them expected. Friday afternoon, mission briefing. The team gathered in the classified planning room. Screens on the walls showing satellite imagery, maps marked with GPS coordinates. Intelligence reports from sources Sloan didn't have the clearance to know existed. Hawkins stood at the front, remote control in hand, expression serious. Gentlemen, dock, wheels up Monday at 0400. Destination remains classified until we're airborne. Mission parameters, recovery operation. 2 American contractors, civilian security personnel. Kidnapped 6 days ago near the Syrian-Iraqi border. Current intel places them in this compound. The screen changed. Overhead imagery of a small village. Single-story buildings clustered around a central courtyard. Desert surrounding. One road in and out. Enemy force estimated at 8 to 12 combatants. Mix of local militia and foreign fighters. All armed, all motivated. The contractors are high value from a diplomatic standpoint. State Department wants them back. We're tasked with getting them. Hawkins clicked to the next slide. Timeline, approach routes, contingencies. Insert at 2200 local time. Approach on foot from this position 2 kilometers north. Stone provides overwatch from the ridgeline here. Elevation advantage, 800 meters from target. Entry team of 6 conducts the breach. Recover the packages. Exfil to primary landing zone. Total time on target, 90 minutes maximum. Frost raised his hand. What's Doc's role, sir? Hawkins looked at Sloan. Barrett remains at base camp with communications. Standard operating procedure for first mission with a new corpsman. She monitors comms, prepares for casualty treatment if we bring wounded back. Expected, reasonable, safe. But somewhere deep in Sloan's mind, her father's voice whispered, they don't trust you yet. You haven't earned it. You will. Barrett, Hawkins' attention focused on her. Medical preparation is your responsibility. I want you ready for worst-case scenarios. Gunshot wounds, shrapnel injuries, burns, environmental casualties from heat or dehydration. Brief the team Monday morning before we depart on treatment protocols and what we're carrying. Yes, sir. Questions? Hawkins scanned the room. No hands. Good. Medical brief Monday at 0700. Gear inspection at 0800. Movement briefing at 0900. Full rehearsal at 1300. Get rest this weekend. Monday starts the real work. Dismissed. The team filed out. The jokes and casual conversation that normally filled the spaces between briefings were absent. Mission mode had activated. The transformation from men into operators beginning. Stone lingered after the others left. Approached Sloan as she gathered her tablet and notes. Barrett. Yes, Senior Chief. You've been downrange before. Real combat, not training. 3 deployments. Senior Chief, Afghanistan twice, Iraq once. 6 months each rotation. See actual combat or stay on base? I treated casualties brought back from firefights. Mortar attacks hit our FOB twice. I was outside the wire for convoy security medical coverage 3 times. IEDs both times we took contact. Stone nodded slowly. Processing. Monday might be different. Base camp isn't always safe. You comfortable with that M9 you qualified expert with? Yes, Senior Chief. Good, keep it close. He started to leave. Stopped. That wine call at the range. 600 meters, 8 inches of drift. You calculated that fast. Sloan met his eyes steadily. Observation, Senior Chief. Just watching the flags in mirage. Right, observation. Stone's expression didn't change. Keep observing, Doc. Sometimes what we notice saves lives. He left Sloan alone in the planning room. She looked at the satellite imagery still displayed on the screen. The compound where in 3 days everything would change. Where promises made would collide with necessities discovered. Her hand moved unconsciously to her shoulder. Traced the scar through her uniform. 11 years keeping a promise. 3 days until that promise faced its ultimate test. She didn't know if she'd keep it, but her father's voice in her memory already knew the answer. Some promises were meant to be kept. Others were meant to be broken at precisely the right moment. Monday would reveal which kind hers was. The C-130 touched down at a classified forward operating base somewhere between Syria and places that didn't exist on maps. 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Desert air that felt like breathing through a furnace. Sloan stepped off the ramp carrying 62 pounds of medical supplies on her back. The heat hit like a physical force. Around her, the team moved with practiced efficiency. Gear checks, weapons checks. The choreography of men who'd done this so many times it had become muscle memory. She found shade against a concrete barrier. Hydrated. Checked her med pack for the 3rd time. Everything in its place. Tourniquets, combat gauze, IV supplies, chest seals, morphine, the tools of her trade. Hawkins gathered them in a tent that smelled like dust and diesel. Intel update. Packages are confirmed at the target location. Guard force estimated at 15 to 20, higher than initial assessment. We proceed as planned. Questions. Stone raised his hand. Exfil route. Primary LZ unchanged. Alternate is 3 clicks north if we're compromised. Helo has 30-minute response time once we call. Rules of engagement. Hostile action equals hostile intent. Protect the packages, protect each other. Use minimum force necessary. Hawkins looked at each man. This is recovery, not retribution. We get in, get them, get out. Clean. The briefing continued. Timelines, contingencies, communication protocols. Sloan absorbed it all. Her role was simple. Stay at base camp. Monitor comms. Be ready if casualties came back. Simple. Safe. Exactly where a new corpsman belonged. But nothing about war stayed simple for long. They moved out at 1400, 6-vehicle convoy to a rally point 12 kilometers from target. The landscape looked like Mars. Red dirt, rocky outcrops, heat shimmer turning the horizon into liquid. Sloan rode in the third vehicle. Frost and Garrett across from her. Neither spoke. Game faces on. The transformation from joking teammates to operators was complete. Rally point. The vehicles formed a defensive perimeter. Camouflage netting went up. Fighting positions established. This would be base camp, the place Sloan would wait while others did the dangerous work. Stone approached as she organized the medical area. He carried his M40A5 sniper rifle like it was part of his anatomy. Doc, how you holding up? Good, Senior Chief. Heat getting to you? I'm managing. Stone nodded, looked at the medical supplies she'd laid out, saw the systematic organization. Every item where it needed to be for rapid access. You've done this before. 3 deployments, Senior Chief. Different environment, same principles. Afghanistan, twice. Iraq, once. Sea combat. Treated casualties from combat. Mortar attacks on the FOB, IED, strikes on convoys. Gunshot wounds from firefights. Sloan met his eyes. I've seen what happens when things go wrong. Stone was quiet for a moment. Then, what do you think of the plan? The question caught her off guard. Operators didn't usually ask corpsmen for tactical opinions. I think 15 to 20 enemies is a lot for a 7-man entry team. Yeah. Stone's gaze drifted toward the target area invisible beyond the horizon. It is. He walked away, leaving Sloan with the distinct impression she'd just passed some kind of test. The sun moved across the sky. Temperature climbed to 122. Sloan enforced hydration discipline on herself. Water, electrolyte tablets, monitoring her own condition the way she'd monitor a patient. At 1600, Petty Officer Dylan Garrett stumbled near the vehicle. Sloan's head snapped up. Training kicked in before conscious thought. Garrett was 24. Solid performer. No medical history of concern. But right now his face was flushed crimson. Sweat had stopped. Skin looked dry despite the heat. Classic signs. Sloan crossed the distance in 4 strides. Garrett, sit down. I'm good, Doc. Just sit now. The command in her voice surprised him. He sat. Sloan pulled out her thermometer, checked his pulse, skin temperature, level of consciousness. Pulse 130, radial pulse weak, skin hot and dry, pupils slightly dilated, heat stroke, not heat exhaustion, the real thing, the kind that killed people. Chief Hayes, her voice carried across the camp. Gunny jogged over. What's the heat stroke? Core temperature probably 105 or higher. He needs IV fluids immediately and we need to cool him down. Now. Gunny looked at Garrett, looked at Sloan. You sure he was fine 10 minutes ago? Heat stroke progresses fast. He's not sweating anymore. That's late stage. We have maybe 10 minutes before he seizes or worse. Sloan was already pulling IV supplies. I need someone to get Commander Hawkins. We need to delay movement until Garrett stabilizes. Gunny didn't argue. He moved. Sloan inserted the IV line, 18 gauge, antecubital vein, saline flowing wide open. She soaked towels with water from the cooler, placed them on Garrett's neck, armpits, groin, the high blood flow areas. Frost appeared with more water. What can I do? Keep those towels wet and cool. Change them every 2 minutes. We need to bring his core temperature down gradually. Too fast causes other problems. Hawkins arrived. Report. Heat stroke, sir. Garrett needs at least 30 minutes of treatment before he's stable enough to move. Recommend delaying departure. Hawkins studied Garrett. The young operator's color was already improving slightly. The IV fluids working. Your assessment of his condition in 30 minutes. If he responds to treatment, he'll be conscious and stable, but not fit for combat operations. Recommend he stays at base camp. Can you keep him alive here? Yes, sir. Better than if we move him now. Hawkins made the call. We delay departure by 45 minutes. Garrett stays at base. Barrett, he's your responsibility. Understood, sir. The team adjusted, timelines shifted. Nobody complained. They'd all seen heat casualties before, knew how fast the desert could kill you. 30 minutes later, Garrett was sitting up, drinking on his own, color returning to normal, core temperature dropping. He looked at Sloan with something like embarrassment. Sorry, Doc. Nothing to apologize for. Heat doesn't care how tough you are. How'd you know I barely felt off before you were on me? Training, experience, observation. Sloan checked his vitals again. You stopped sweating. Skin changed color. Gait was slightly off. All indicators. Frost crouched beside them. I was standing right next to him and didn't notice anything. Different kind of training, Sloan said simply. Later, as the team prepared to move out, Gunny approached. You might have saved his life, Doc. Just doing my job, Chief. Most corpsmen would have missed it until he collapsed. Gunny's voice carried respect that hadn't been there before. You got good eyes. The team departed at 17:30. Sloan watched them disappear into the desert. 7 operators moving like ghosts. Stone with his rifle. Hawkins leading. Frost and the others spread in tactical formation. She was alone with Garrett and the vehicle drivers. The radio her only connection to what was happening out there. Sloan settled into wait. Waiting was part of combat medicine, the hardest part. Knowing people you cared about were in danger and being powerless to help until they brought the wounded back. If they brought the wounded back. At 1900, Gunny's voice crackled over the radio. Base, this is entry 1. We're 2 clicks from target. Chief Hayes is limping. Need Doc's assessment. Sloan keyed the mic. Chief described the pain. Twisted my ankle crossing a ravine. It's fine. Can you put weight on it? Yeah. Does it hurt more when you push off or when you land? Pause. Push off. Any swelling you can see or feel. Longer pause. Sloan closed her eyes, visualized the injury. Grade 2 ankle sprain, maybe grade 3. The kind of injury you could walk on with adrenaline. The kind that would fail you at exactly the wrong moment. Commander Hawkins, this is Barrett. Recommend Chief Hayes modify his role. That ankle could give out during close quarters movement. He needs to avoid rapid lateral movements or running. Hawkins' voice came back. Copy. Hayes, you're on security. No breach team. Sir, I can. Not a debate, Chief. Gunny's frustration was audible even through the radio static, but he acknowledged. Sloan released the mic, looked at Garrett, who was listening from his cot. You just benched Gunny Hayes, Garrett said quietly. He's not going to be happy. I'd rather have him unhappy than have his ankle give out in a hallway and get someone killed. Fair point. 2000, full dark. Radio discipline went silent. The team was approaching the target. Sloan checked her medical area for the 4th time. Litters ready, IV supplies staged, surgical kit prepared, everything positioned for rapid treatment of multiple casualties. She'd learned this in Afghanistan. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, because hope didn't stop bleeding. At 2200, the silence broke. Contact, contact, we're taking fire. The radio exploded with overlapping voices, gunfire in the background, not the controlled rhythm of a planned engagement, the chaos of things going sideways. Hawkins' voice cut through. Entry team, report. We're pinned down. Intel was wrong. 20+ enemies, we need an explosion. RPG by the sound of it. Frost is hit, Frost is down. Sloan was on her feet, every muscle tensed, every instinct screaming to move, to help, to do something. But she was 12 kilometers away. Useless. Doc, Hawkins' voice, we need you now. Vehicle 2 is coming to get you. Sir, I'm inbound. She grabbed her aid bag, 60 pounds of medical supplies, lighter than the full pack, everything essential. The vehicle roared into camp. Sloan jumped in before it fully stopped. Go? They flew across the desert. No roads, just rock and sand and darkness. The driver used night vision. Sloan braced against the door, checking her supplies by feel. Tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, IV kits, 12 kilometers in 8 minutes. The vehicle couldn't get closer without being spotted. She'd have to run the last kilometer. Sloan bailed out while they were still rolling, hit the ground running. 60 pounds on his back felt like nothing. Adrenaline was a hell of a drug. Gunfire ahead, muzzle flashes. The distinctive crack of AK-47s mixing with the deeper boom of American M4s. She found the team behind a low wall. Frost was on his back, dark stains spreading across his leg. High femoral area, femoral artery, 90 seconds before shock, 2 minutes before death without intervention. Sloan slid in next to him, bullets snapped overhead. She didn't flinch. There was only the patient, only the wound, only the work. Frost, look at me. You're going to be fine. His eyes were wide, scared. Doc, I can't feel my leg. Blood loss, I'm fixing it. Stay with me. She pulled the tourniquet from her kit. Her hands moved with absolute certainty. Position it high on the thigh, above the wound. The only way to stop femoral bleeding in the field. One wrap around the leg. Thread the strap through the buckle. Pull it snug. Insert the windlass rod. Now the critical part. She twisted the rod. Once, twice. The tourniquet band tightened. Compressed flesh. Compressed artery. Frost screamed. Sloan kept twisting. 3 rotations. 4. The bright arterial spray slowed, became a trickle, then stopped entirely. She secured the windlass, checked the wound, no bleeding, checked distal pulse, none. That was correct. The tourniquet had done its job. 19 seconds from arrival to secured tourniquet. Bleeding stopped. You're stable. Frost's breathing was rapid, shallow. Hurts like hell. That means you're alive. Alive hurts. Dead doesn't. She started an IV line. Combat fluids. Keep his pressure up. You're going to be fine. More gunfire. Closer now. Hawkins dropped beside him. We need to move. Enemies flanking. Can he walk? No, we carry him. Doc, we're still taking fire. We can't. The next burst of gunfire came from a different direction. A rooftop. 280 meters away. Sloan saw the muzzle flash. Saw the angle. Saw that the shooter had a perfect line on Hawkins. Time crystallized. Slowed. The way it did in her father's stories. The way he described combat. Everything sharp. Clear. Inevitable. The enemy sniper was aiming. Taking his time. Professional. Hawkins didn't see him. Focused on Frost. Vulnerable. 5 seconds until the shot. Frost's M4 rifle lay 3 feet away. Dropped when he fell. Standard ACOG scope. Loaded. Safety off. Sloan looked at the rifle. Looked at Hawkins. Looked at the rooftop. She heard her father's voice. Clear as if he stood beside her. When the moment comes, you don't think. You just act. Because thinking gets people killed. She heard her mother's voice. Promise me. Promise you'll never touch a gun again. She heard Morrison's question. What are you going to do? Sloan reached for the rifle. Her hands knew what to do. Muscle memory from 1,000 hours of training, from a childhood spent learning this exact thing. Chamber check. Round confirmed. Scope adjustment. Range estimation. Wind read. 280 meters. Elevated target. Light wind from the east. Bullet drop minimal at this range with 5.56 millimeters. She brought the rifle to her shoulder, felt it settle into the pocket. Perfect fit. Like coming home. Gunny saw her. Doc, what are you? Sloan's world narrowed to the scope picture. The crosshairs, the target, enemy sniper, dark silhouette against lighter sky. Crouch position, rifle barrel visible, breath control. In for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Her heartbeat slowed. She timed her shot to the pause in her pulse. That fraction of a second when the body was perfectly still. I have the shot. Hawkins turned, saw her, saw the rifle. Barrett, Sloan squeezed the trigger. Gentle, smooth, the way her father taught her. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. 2.1 seconds of flight time. The enemy sniper jerked, fell backward, disappeared from the rooftop. Silence. Not actual silence. Gunfire still rattled. Shouts in Arabic. Return fire from Stone's position. But in the small space between Sloan and the team, everything stopped. Frost stared at her. Holy shit, did you just... Sloan set the rifle down, smooth, controlled. Returned to Frost's side, checked his vitals. Pulse 110, blood pressure holding. You need medevac, but you're stable. Hawkins hadn't moved, his eyes fixed on the rooftop, then on Sloan. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Sloan met his gaze. Steady. My father, sir. That was 280 meters. Yes, sir. Moving target. Under fire. Yes, sir. Gunny crawled over. Who the hell is your father? Sloan was quiet for 3 seconds. The secret she'd kept for 11 years. The truth she'd run from. The legacy she'd denied. Gunnery Sergeant Michael Barrett, Marine Scout Sniper. 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. Recognition flashed across Gunny's face. He was older, old enough to have served with Marines in that era. Mike Barrett, the Mike Barrett Helmand legend. Sloan nodded. Jesus Christ. Gunny looked at the rifle, at Sloan, at the rooftop. He taught you 4 years, from 12 to 16. And you're a corpsman. I promised my mother I'd never touch a gun after he died. Today I broke that promise. Hawkins processed this. You saved my life. I did my job, sir. Keeping the team alive is my job. Your job is medical. Sloan looked at Frost, at his stabilized wound, at the eye running clear. I did that too. More gunfire. A reminder they were still in a hot zone. Hawkins made the call. Exfil now. Stone, you and Gunny carry Frost on a litter. Barrett, you're with me. Rear security. Sir, I should stay with Frost. Frost is stable. You said so yourself. Right now I need someone who can hit at 300 meters covering our withdrawal. Can you do that? Sloan picked up Frost's rifle. Checked it. Yes, sir. They moved. Combat extraction. Controlled chaos. Frost on an improvised litter between Stone and Gunny. Sloan and Hawkins providing rear security. An enemy squad tried to flank from the east. 4 men, moving through rubble. Sloan saw them first. Contact right, 150 meters. 4 targets. She engaged. Controlled pairs. 2 rounds per target. Center mass. Down, 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 down. 4 seconds. 4 enemies neutralized. Hawkins stared at her. Where the hell have you been hiding? In plain sight, sir. They reached the vehicles. Loaded Frost. Called for medevac. The helicopter was inbound. 10 minutes. Sloan worked on Frost during the wait. Reassessed the tourniquet. Applied additional pressure dressing over the entry wound. Checked for compartment syndrome. Adjusted IV flow rate. Kept him talking. Doc, Frost said quietly. I'm sorry for doubting you. You had every right to doubt me. I hadn't proven anything. You proved it today. You would have done the same for me. The helicopter landed in a storm of rotor wash and dust. They loaded Frost. The bird lifted off. Gone. The team sat in the darkness, processing, coming down from the adrenaline. Stone approached Sloan, his sniper rifle slung across his back. That first shot, the sniper, 280 meters, I had him in my scope too. I was about to take him when you fired. Perfect center mass hit. Thank you, Senior Chief. Don't thank me. Answer my question. How many combat shots have you made before tonight? Sloan thought back. Training sessions with her father. Hundreds of them. Thousands of practice rounds. But combat in training thousands. In combat, tonight was my first. Stone went very still. Your first combat shot ever was 280 meters. Moving target, under fire. And you made it first round. Yes, Senior Chief. Mike Barrett trained you well. He did. Stone's expression changed. Something that looked like recognition. I met your father, once. Joint training exercise. 2011, Camp Pendleton. Best natural shooter I ever saw. He mentioned teaching his daughter, said you had a gift for it, said you were better than him at your age. Sloan's throat tightened. He said that he was proud, said you had the steadiest hands he had ever seen on someone so young, said you understood the mathematics of it instinctively. Stone paused. He also said you'd promised never to use those skills, that you'd chosen a different path, healing instead of fighting. I did, until tonight. Your father would understand. Hell, he'd insist. He taught you to protect people. That's what you did. They rode back to base camp in silence. Sloan sat with her thoughts, with the weight of what she'd done. She'd broken her promise. She'd used the skills her father taught her. She'd killed a man. The logical part of her brain knew it was justified, necessary. Hawkins would be dead otherwise. Maybe Frost too. But logic didn't erase the weight. At base camp, Hawkins called a debrief. Let's address what happened. Intel was wrong. We walked into heavier resistance than expected. Frost took a hit. Doc saved his life with a tourniquet in under 20 seconds. Then she saved mine with a shot I didn't even see coming. Then she provided covering fire during exfil and neutralized 4 additional hostiles. He looked at Sloan. Barrett, you told us you'd never engaged in combat. I hadn't, sir. I treated combat casualties. Different skill set. Not anymore. Hawkins crossed his arms. Here's what I need to know. Can you do that again when we need it? Sloan met his eyes. Yes, sir. Without hesitation. Without hesitation. Hawkins nodded slowly. Then we need to evaluate your actual capabilities. Because what I saw tonight suggests you're significantly more skilled than anyone knew. Stone spoke up. Commander requests permission to formally test Doc's marksmanship. We need to understand what we're working with. Agreed. Tomorrow morning, 0800, full evaluation. Hawkins looked around the team. Anyone have concerns about that? Silence. The skepticism from 2 weeks ago was gone, replaced by curiosity, professional interest. Gunny raised his hand. Just one question, Doc. Why hide it? Why not tell us you could shoot? Sloan took a breath. Because I promised my mother after my father died that I would never touch a gun again. I joined the Navy to heal people, not to kill them. I kept that promise for 11 years. I broke it tonight because watching Commander Hawkins die wasn't an option I could live with. I'll have to reconcile that with myself and with my mother. But given the same situation, I'd make the same choice. Your mother going to understand? Gunny asked. I don't know, Chief, but I hope so. The team dispersed, exhausted, processing what they'd witnessed. Sloan sat alone under the stars, pulled out her phone, stared at her mother's contact information, couldn't make the call, not yet, didn't have the words. Instead, she called Morrison. He answered on the second ring. Sloan, I heard. You all right? How did you? Hawkins called me an hour ago. Wanted to know what I knew about Mike teaching you. I told him everything. Morrison paused. So, you broke the promise. I did. Tell me what happened. She did, all of it. Garrett's heat stroke, Frost's femoral artery, the sniper on the rooftop, the shot, the exfil. When she finished, Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Your father taught you to shoot for exactly this reason, Sloan. Not to kill, to protect. You protected your team tonight. That's what he wanted. That's what the training was for. Mom's going to... Your mother is stronger than you think. She married a Marine. She knew what that meant. She knows what service requires. Morrison's voice softened. Mike would be proud of you. The shot you made, the lives you saved, the choice you made when it mattered. I'm proud of you. It doesn't feel like something to be proud of. It never does. Not the first time. Not ever really. But you live with it because the alternative is living with dead teammates you could have saved. You know that now. Sloan closed her eyes. Yeah, I know. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, they're going to test you. Show them what Mike taught you, all of it. No more hiding. Yes, sir. And Sloan, call your mother. She deserves to hear it from you before someone else tells her. The call ended. Sloan sat in the darkness for another hour, finally found the courage to dial. Her mother answered on the fourth ring. Late in California, past midnight. Sloan, is everything all right? Mom, I need to tell you something. Silence. Then, you used a gun. Not a question, a mother's intuition. How did you? I know my daughter, and I knew this day would come eventually. Tell me what happened. Sloan told her, simplified, but honest. When she finished, her mother was quiet. Sloan heard her breathing, heard tears. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I promised. Stop. Her mother's voice was firm, controlled. You promised me when you were 16 years old and your father had just died. You were a child. You're not a child anymore. You're a woman who saved lives tonight. Your father's daughter, a healer and a protector. I killed someone. You protected someone. There's a difference. Intent matters. Context matters. You didn't kill for revenge or pleasure. You killed because your commander would have died if you hadn't. Her mother's voice cracked slightly. Your father taught you those skills knowing this moment would come, knowing you'd have to choose. He'd be proud you chose correctly. Tears ran down Sloan's face. I miss him, Mom. So do I, every single day. But he's with you, sweetheart, in those skills, in that choice you made, in the people you saved. A pause. I'm proud of you, scared for you, but proud. I love you, Mom. I love you too. Come home safe. The call ended. Sloan sat alone in the desert darkness, cried quietly, let the grief and relief wash through her. Then she wiped her eyes, drank water, checked on Garrett one more time. Tomorrow they would test her, measure her, quantify what her father had built over 4 years of patient teaching. Tomorrow she would show them, not hiding anymore. Her father's daughter, both things at once. Morning came early. Sloan woke at 0500, couldn't sleep anyway. The range was set up by 0800, targets at various distances, 600 meters, 800, 1,000. Beyond that if needed. Stone waited with his M40A5. The entire team present. This wasn't just an evaluation. It was a revelation. Commander says we test your capabilities. So we test. Stone handed her the rifle. You familiar with this weapon system? Yes, Senior Chief. My father used the M40A3, same platform, earlier generation. This is the A5. Some differences in the stock and scope, but fundamentally the same. Understood. 600 meters. Winds about 5 miles per hour from the west. Show me what you can do. Sloan took the rifle, felt the weight, the balance, remembered. She set up. Prone position. Bipod deployed. Cheek weld on the stock. Eye relief correct. Breathing cycle initiated. The target came into focus through the scope. Clear, sharp. She calculated wind drift. Bullet drop at 600 meters. Made her adjustments. Her finger found the trigger. She timed her shot to the rhythm of her heartbeat. The brief pause when everything was still. Fired. Stone looked through the spotting scope. Center mass. Good shooting. Again. 800. Sloan adjusted her scope, recalculated. More bullet drop at this range. More wind effect. She made the shot. Hit. Upper chest. Stone's voice remained professional. Neutral. 1,000 meters. Let's see if you can make that. 1,000 meters. More than half a mile. Where environmental factors became dominant. Where shooting became as much art as science. Sloan had made this shot before. In New Mexico. With her father spotting. In conditions she'd memorized. But this was different terrain. Different altitude. Different atmospheric pressure. She took her time. Observed the mirage through the scope. Estimated wind at various distances. Calculated the ballistic arc. Nearly 60 inches of drop at this range. Major scope adjustment. Breathing controlled. Heart rate steady. She found that perfect stillness. That moment between heartbeats where nothing moved. Fired. 2 full seconds of flight time. The bullet arced through half a mile of desert air. Stone watched through the spotting scope. Said nothing for 5 seconds. Then dead center, perfect hit. Gunny watching from behind let out a low whistle. Jesus, Doc. Hawkins stepped forward. Barrett, answer honestly. What's your maximum effective range? What's the farthest you've successfully engaged a target? In training with my father, I've made confirmed hits at 1,200 meters, sir. Multiple times, consistently. 1,200 meters. Hawkins looked at Stone. That's world class. That's beyond most military snipers, Stone corrected. Most guys max out around 800 to 1,000. 1,200 requires exceptional skill, exceptional equipment, and exceptional conditions. The fact that she's making 1,000-meter shots on a rifle she just picked up. My father was a good teacher, Sloan said simply. Hawkins processed this information. Here's our situation. We have a hospital corpsman who's also an elite-level marksman. We need both capabilities. The question is how to properly integrate them without compromising either role. Stone spoke up. Cross-designation, combat medic/designated marksman. It's been discussed before at the command level. Never implemented because we've never had someone qualified for both roles. Until now. Your thoughts, Barrett? Hawkins asked. Sloan lowered the rifle, looked at the team. At men who doubted her 3 weeks ago and now looked at her with professional respect. Sir, I joined the Navy to save lives. That remains my primary mission. But I understand now that sometimes saving lives requires eliminating threats to those lives. I'm willing to serve in whatever capacity best helps this team. If that means doing both, I'll do both. Hawkins looked at Stone, at Gunny, at the others. Show of hands. Who supports Barrett serving as both combat medic and designated marksman? Every hand went up. No hesitation. Then it's decided. Barrett effective immediately, you're designated as our team's combat medic and secondary marksman. Stone remains primary sniper. You provide medical support and backup precision fire as situations require. We'll adjust our tactical planning to utilize both your skill sets. He paused. You'll need additional training on advanced marksmanship techniques, environmental compensation, moving targets, low-light shooting. Stone will handle that training. Yes, sir. One more thing. Hawkins' expression softened slightly. Your father trained you well, Barrett. I'm sorry you had to break your promise to use those skills, but I'm damn grateful you did. Sloan nodded, couldn't speak past the tightness in her throat. The team dispersed. Stone stayed behind. Tomorrow we start your advanced training, long-range environmental factors, moving target engagement, low-light techniques, the advanced applications your father probably introduced but will formalize. Thank you, Senior Chief. Don't thank me yet. I'm a demanding instructor, but you've got the best foundation I've seen outside Tier 1 units. We'll build on that. Stone started to walk away, stopped, turned back. Your father told me something. That last time I met him, 2011, he said, I'm not teaching my daughter to be a killer. I'm teaching her to be a protector. Someday someone will need protecting, and she'll be the only one who can do it. I want her to have that option. Stone met her eyes. You had that option last night. You chose correctly. That's all he wanted. Sloane watched him leave, sat alone with the rifle and her thoughts. She'd spent 11 years hiding, 11 years denying who she was, not anymore. She was Sloane Barrett, daughter of Gunnery Sergeant Michael Barrett, Hospital Corpsman First Class, and now officially a warrior. Her father had given her both hands. Finally, she was learning to use them both. 3 weeks after the contractor rescue, the operations order came down. High priority mission. American journalist kidnapped near the Turkish border. Thomas Whitfield, freelance reporter covering the refugee crisis. Intel suggested execution within 48 hours. This would be different from the first mission. Sloane wouldn't be staying at base camp. Hawkins gathered the team. Wheels up at 0400 tomorrow. Mission brief at 2000 tonight. Full kit rehearsal afterward. This one's going to be tight. Complex environment. Civilian population nearby. Rules of engagement will be restrictive. He looked at Sloane. Barrett, your entry team, full medical load plus M4. Stone has primary sniper overwatch. Your backup precision and primary medical. Clear. Clear, sir. Frost recovered from his leg wound and back on duty grinned. Welcome to the varsity dock. The mission brief that evening laid out the complexity. Target compound sits in a valley. Population center nearby. 15 to 20 hostiles confirmed. Mix of local militia and foreign fighters. Whitfield is confirmed alive as of 12 hours ago. Intel suggests they plan to execute him tomorrow at noon local time. We have a window. Hawkins clicked to the tactical overview. Insert by helicopter 2 kilometers north. Stone establishes overwatch here 800 meters from compound. Entry team of 6 approaches on foot. Breach at first light 0700 local. Recover Whitfield. Exfil to primary LZ. Total time on target 90 minutes max. Stone studied the terrain. Exfil concerns multiple. One road in and out of the valley. If we're compromised, the entire area can be locked down fast. Alternate LZ here, 3 kilometers northwest. Helicopter has a 20-minute response time once we call for extraction. Frost raised his hand. What's Whitfield's physical condition? Unknown. Assume he's been beaten. Possibly tortured. May not be ambulatory. Barrett, you need to be ready to treat and stabilize quickly. Yes, sir. One more thing. Hawkins's expression turned serious. Intel indicates one of the guard force may be a former military sniper, possibly Russian or Eastern European trained. We're treating this as a high-threat environment. Stone Barrett, be ready for counter-sniper operations. The rehearsal went until midnight. Entry procedures, casualty evacuation, contingency plans, the team running through every scenario until the movements became automatic. At 0300, Sloane did her final gear check. Medical pack, 40 pounds, tourniquets, combat gauze, IV supplies, chest seals, morphine, surgical kit, everything needed for trauma care in the field. M4 carbine, loaded, 4 extra magazines, 150 rounds. Beretta M9, sidearm, 2 extra magazines, or body armor, helmet, night vision, communications gear, 110 pounds of equipment. She'd carried it before. She'd carry it again. The helicopter insertion went smoothly. Pre-dawn darkness. The bird flying nap of the earth to avoid detection. They landed in a wadi 2 kilometers from target, offloaded. The helicopter disappeared into the night. Silence settled over the desert. Stone split off immediately, moving to his overwatch position on the ridgeline. The rest of the team, Hawkins, Gunny, Frost, Garrett, another operator named Dixon, and Sloane moved toward the compound. The approach took 40 minutes. Slow, careful, using terrain and darkness for concealment. At 0645, they reached the compound perimeter. Stone's voice came over the radio. Overwatch in position. I have eyes on target. Thermal shows. Hold on. Showing more heat signatures than expected. Count 25 to 30 individuals, not 15 to 20. Hawkins froze. Say again, 30. Confirmed. Multiple vehicles just arrived. Looks like reinforcements. Intel was off. Sloane felt the mission change. More enemies meant more risk, more complexity, higher chance of casualties. Hawkins made the decision. We proceed. Whitfield won't survive if we abort. Entry team prepare for higher resistance. Stone prioritized targets that threaten the exfil. Barrett, stay close to me. They stacked up at the breach point. Frost on point with the breaching charge. Gunny second. Hawkins third. Sloane fourth. Garrett and Dixon on 5 and 6. Frost set the charge. Everyone moved back. Hand signals counted down. 3, 2, 1. The charge detonated. The door disintegrated in a shower of splinters and dust. They flowed through. First room empty. Second room, two hostiles scrambling for weapons. Gunny and Frost engaged. Both targets down before they could fire. Third room, Whitfield, tied to a chair, face swollen from beatings, blood on his shirt, but alive, conscious. His eyes went wide when he saw American uniforms. "We've got the package," Hawkins reported. Sloan moved to Whitfield. Quick assessment. Broken ribs probable. Facial trauma, dehydrated, malnourished, but ambulatory with support. She cut his restraints. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Stay close to me." That's when the world exploded. RPG through the east window. The blast wave threw Sloan into the wall. Her ears rang, vision blurred. She ran through her mental checklist. Arms functional, legs functional. No major bleeding, combat effective. But Garrett was down. Sloan crawled to him. Shrapnel wounds across his left thigh and hip. One wound high on the femoral area. Bright red arterial bleeding. Not again, but this time she knew exactly what to do. She pulled a tourniquet from her kit. Her hands moved with practiced certainty. This was the third femoral artery bleed she'd treated in combat. The movements had become automatic. She positioned the tourniquet high on Garrett's thigh, wrapped the band around once, threaded it through the friction buckle, pulled it snug against the skin, inserted the windlass rod, began twisting. Garrett's face contorted in pain, but he didn't scream. He'd seen this before, knew what was coming. Sloan twisted the windlass. Each rotation increased the pressure, compressed the tissue, shut down blood flow through the artery. The bright red spray diminished, became a trickle, stopped. She secured the windlass with the clip, noted the time on her watch. 16 seconds from initial contact to secured tourniquet. Faster every time. "You're stable. IV next." But there was no time. Gunfire erupted outside. Heavy, sustained, the distinctive rattle of a belt-fed machine gun. Stone's voice over the radio. "You're taking fire from multiple positions. Count 30 plus hostiles. Machine gun nest on the north building rooftop. 380 meters. I don't have angle from here. Buildings blocking my line of sight." Hawkins assessed the situation. Garrett down but stable. Whitfield injured but mobile. 30 plus enemies. Machine gun pinning them down. "We need that gun silenced or we're stuck here." Sloan moved to the window, looked out, saw the north building, saw the rooftop, saw the machine gun crew. 380 meters, slightly elevated, two-man crew, one firing, one feeding ammunition. Stone didn't have the angle. No one else had a precision rifle, except her. "Commander, I have angle on the machine gun." Hawkins looked at her, looked at Garrett. "You need to stay with casualties." "Garrett's stable, sir. Tourniquet's holding. He'll be fine for 10 minutes. But none of us are fine if that gun keeps firing." Hawkins knew she was right. "Take the shot." Sloan positioned herself at the window. M4 up, ACOG scope. Quick assessment of range and conditions. 380 meters. Wind maybe 6 miles per hour from the northwest. Bullet drop approximately 18 inches with 5.56 millimeters at this range. The machine gunner was partially concealed behind the gun shield. Head and upper chest visible. Small target, difficult shot, but not impossible. She controlled her breathing, found her natural respiratory pause, timed the shot to her cardiac cycle, fired. The machine gunner jerked, fell backward, but immediately a second gunner took his place, grabbed the weapon, continued firing. Sloan adjusted her aim. The second gunner was more cautious, less exposed. She fired again. The round sparked off the gun mount. Miss. The gunner ducked lower, relocated slightly to his right. Sloan tracked the movement, led the target, compensated for the new angle, fired, hit. The second gunner went down. The machine gun fell silent. "Guns neutralized," Stone confirmed over the radio. "Outstanding shooting, Doc." "Entry Team Xville now." Hawkins grabbed Whitfield. "Gunny, Frost, get Garrett on a litter. Barrett, you're with me. Rear security." They moved. Garrett on a hasty litter constructed from a door and parachute cord, Sloan and Hawkins providing covering fire as they withdrew. The compound erupted behind them. Enemies everywhere. The team fought their way out, running gunfight across 200 meters of open ground. Sloan engaged targets as they appeared. Short controlled bursts. Movement between shots. The way her father had taught her. Fire and maneuver. Never stay static. They reached the rally point. Temporary cover behind a cluster of large rocks, 400 meters from the compound. Sloan went immediately to Garrett, checked the tourniquet, still secure, started the IV she hadn't had time for before. Saline flowing. His color was poor, but he was conscious. Whitfield sat against a rock, breathing hard. Sloan did a quick secondary assessment. How are you feeling? Like I've been beaten and starved for 4 days. That's accurate. She gave him water. Small sips. Don't drink too fast. Hawkins was on the radio. Need immediate exfil. Landing zone alpha. We have 2 casualties. Birds inbound. ETA 10 minutes. 10 minutes. They had to hold for 10 minutes. Then Stone's voice came through. Strained. Different. I'm hit. Right shoulder. Can't maintain my position. No overwatch. No long-range security. And enemies were regrouping. Sloan looked back toward the compound through her rifle scope. Saw movement. Counted heads. 8 men. Squad-sized element. Moving tactically toward their position. 200 meters and closing. The team was compromised. Garrett couldn't move without the litter. Whitfield could barely walk. Stone was wounded. They couldn't fight effectively while protecting casualties. Someone needed to slow the pursuit. Sloan made the decision. And Commander, I'll establish a blocking position. Delay them while you get everyone to the LZ. Negative, we need you with the casualties. Sir Garrett's stable. Whitfield doesn't need immediate medical intervention. But if those 8 reach us before the helicopter arrives, we all die. Give me 60 seconds. I'll slow them down. Then I'll follow. Hawkins hated it, but he knew the tactical reality. 60 seconds, Barrett. Then you run for the LZ. That's an order. Yes, sir. Sloan grabbed 2 extra magazines from Frost's kit, moved to a position 150 meters from the team. Good cover. Clear field of fire back toward the compound. She set up. Prone, M4 stable on the bipod she'd attached that morning. 90 rounds in the rifle and spare magazines. Beretta M9 with 30 more rounds as backup. 8 enemies at 180 meters. Closing. She picked her first target. The point man, leading the formation. Fired. 2 rounds, center mass. He dropped. The remaining 7 scattered. Professional. They took cover immediately. Return fire. Rounds impacted the rocks around Sloan. She didn't flinch. Identified her next target. Fired. Hit. Second hostile down. She checked her watch. 15 seconds elapsed. 45 remaining. The 6 remaining enemies began a tactical maneuver. 3 moving left to flank. 3 moving right. Standard small unit tactics. Sloan engaged the left group. 2 rounds per target. Rapid fire. 1 down, 1 wounded, 1 retreated to cover. The right group used the distraction to advance. Now at 100 meters. Too close. Sloan shifted position. 20 meters to her right. Different angle. The enemy fire adjusted to where she'd been. Slower than her movement. She engaged the right group from her new position. 3 targets. 70 meters. Close range shooting. Short bursts. Controlled aggression. Down, down, down. 30 seconds remaining. 3 enemies left from the original 8. They'd gone to ground. Cautious now. Behind her, she heard the helicopter approaching. The beautiful sound of rotors. Of salvation. 15 seconds. One of the remaining 3 enemies moved. He was carrying something. Sloan saw it clearly through her scope. RPG launcher. He was positioning to fire at the helicopter. Target moving. Distance 240 meters. Time seconds before he could launch. If that RPG hit the helicopter, everyone died. Sloan calculated everything in an instant. Lead, wind, drop, movement. She controlled her breathing one final time. Found that moment of stillness. Fired. The hostile with the RPG fell. The launcher hit the ground without firing. The helicopter touched down at the LZ. Time to run. Sloan broke from cover, sprinted toward the LZ 150 meters. Full combat load. Every muscle burning. The remaining 2 enemies fired at her. Rounds snapping past, close but missing. She ran harder. Used terrain, dodged, moved unpredictably. 50 meters from the LZ. Gunny appeared at the helicopter door. Move, Doc, go. 25 meters. Almost there. Gunny reached out, grabbed her arm, hauled her into the helicopter. The bird lifted off immediately, banking hard, gaining altitude, accelerating away. Sloan collapsed on the deck, gasping, shaking from adrenaline crash. Garrett looked at her from his stretcher. Doc just held off 8 hostiles alone. 5, Sloan corrected between gasps. I engaged 5. 3 retreated. Frost shook his head in disbelief. That last shot, the RPG guy, you were sprinting and still made a 240-meter shot. Desperate times, Sloan managed. Hawkins knelt beside her. You saved us. Again. Sloan couldn't respond. The weight of it was crushing. The violence, the lives taken. The necessity of it all. But they were alive. Garrett, Whitfield, the team. Alive because she'd done what needed doing. Stone sat against the opposite bulkhead, his right shoulder wrapped in bandages, blood seeping through. Sloan forced herself to move. Senior Chief, let me look at that shoulder. I'm fine, Doc. Nothing's fine until I clear it. Let me see. She cut away his uniform sleeve, entry wound clearly visible. No exit wound. The bullet was still inside. Through and through would have been better. This one's staying until we get you to a surgeon. She irrigated the wound with sterile saline, applied hemostatic gauze, pressure dressing over that. Stone's jaw clenched, but he didn't make a sound. You'll need surgery to extract the round, but you're not bleeding out anymore. Nerve and vascular function look intact. She secured the final layer of the bandage. You'll be back on a rifle in 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Stone's eyes narrowed. Doc, I need 3. Take 6 or risk permanent nerve damage. Your choice, Senior Chief. Stone nodded slowly. 6 it is. The helicopter carried them to the forward operating base. Garrett and Stone were transferred to the surgical unit. Whitfield to medical evaluation and then debriefing. The rest of the team to cleaning gear and writing after-action reports. Sloan sat alone in the medical tent, still processing, still feeling the weight. 2 days later, Admiral Morrison flew in. The team assembled in full dress uniforms. Formal ceremony, something important. Morrison entered. The room snapped to attention. At ease. Morrison moved to the front of the room. I've reviewed the after-action reports from your last mission. What I've read is extraordinary. He looked at each team member. Then his eyes settled on Sloan. Petty Officer Barrett has in the span of 1 month saved 4 lives through medical intervention, neutralized 9 enemy combatants, held a defensive position alone against superior numbers, and enabled the successful recovery of an American civilian journalist. Morrison approached Sloan directly. Her father, Gunnery Sergeant Michael Barrett, was one of the finest Marines I ever served with. He taught his daughter not just to shoot, but to serve, to protect, to understand that sometimes healing requires violence, and violence can be an act of healing. He paused. When Mike died 11 years ago, Sloan promised her mother she'd never touch a gun again. She kept that promise for 11 years. She broke it 3 weeks ago to save her commander's life, and she's continued breaking it to save her teammates and accomplish her missions. Morrison's voice softened. Mike would understand that. Hell, he'd demand it. He taught her those skills knowing someday she'd face exactly that choice. Promise her teammates. She's chosen correctly every time. He looked directly at Sloan. Your father didn't teach you to be a killer, Petty Officer Barrett. He taught you to be a protector. You're honoring that teaching every single day. Morrison pulled out official paperwork. Effective immediately, I'm recommending your cross-designation, combat medic and designated marksman. Official recognition of capabilities you've demonstrated in the field. Additionally, I'm recommending you for the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal for your actions during the Whitfield rescue operation. Sloan's throat tightened. Sir, I was just doing my job. Your job now includes things most corpsmen never do, things most operators struggle to do. Morrison smiled slightly. Mike would be proud, more than proud. The team's response was immediate. Gunny stepped forward, did something highly unusual. He saluted her, enlisted to enlisted. Not standard protocol, but deeply meaningful. Sloan returned the salute. Frost approached next, extended his hand. I was wrong about you, Doc. Completely wrong. You weren't wrong, Frost. You didn't have the information. Now you do. Stone came last, arm in a sling. He handed her something. A patch, custom designed. Navy SEAL trident overlaid with a medical cross, red cross in the center. Gold trident surrounding it. Unofficial, Stone said, but accurate. You're both now. Embrace it. That evening, Sloan sat alone looking at the patch, thinking about the path that had brought her here. The promises made and broken, the father lost and honored, the person she'd become. Her phone rang. Her mother. Sloan answered. Mom, I saw the news. American journalists rescued from Syria. They mentioned SEAL team involvement. Her mother's voice was careful, controlled. Were you there? Yes. Silence. Then, are you hurt? No, physically I'm fine. And emotionally, Sloan thought about how to answer that. I'm processing. It's complicated. Your father used to say the same thing after deployments. He'd need time to reconcile what he'd done with who he was. Her mother took a breath. Sloan, I need you to understand something. I'm not happy you had to break your promise, but I understand why you did. and I'm proud of you. I killed more people, Mom. You protected more people. You saved lives. Medical lives and combat lives. That's what your father taught you to do. Her mother's voice was firm. Intent matters. You're not killing for revenge or pleasure. You're protecting your teammates. That's different. That's service. I miss him so much. I know, I miss him too. Every day. A pause. But he's with you, sweetheart. In those skills, in those choices, in the lives you save, both ways. The conversation continued, her mother asking about details. Sloan providing what she could, the healing beginning in both of them. Acceptance replacing grief. When the call ended, Sloan sat in silence for a long time. Then she made a decision. She sewed the patch onto her uniform. Official or not, it was who she was now. 6 months later, Sloan Barrett stood at the front of a classroom at Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado. 16 students, mixed group of corpsmen and operators, the first class of its kind. The course was called Integrated Combat Medicine and Tactical Shooting. Her course. Welcome to ICMTS, she began. This course exists because warfare doesn't respect job descriptions. Combat doesn't care if you're a medic or a shooter. It demands both. We're going to teach you to be both. She moved to the demonstration area. Medical dummy on the floor. Rifle range visible through the windows behind her. Rule 1 medical treatment always takes priority. Always. Your primary mission is saving lives. But to save lives, your patients need to survive immediate threats. Sometimes that requires you to fight first. Sometimes that requires you to kill. Understanding when to transition between roles is what separates good operators from great ones. The demonstration followed. Sloan showed them the integration. Treating a simulated femoral artery wound, tourniquet application, proper technique, 19 seconds start to finish. Then immediate transition to her rifle, moving to a firing position, engaging a target at 300 meters. Clean hit, then back to the patient. IV and insertion, continuing medical care. Total elapsed time 47 seconds. The students watched in stunned silence. This isn't about being the best medic or the best shooter, Sloan continued. It's about being competent enough at both that your team can rely on you for either skill when they need it. Questions. A young female corpsman raised her hand, early 20s, nervous. Petty Officer Barrett, how do you reconcile it? The medical mindset is about preserving life. The combat mindset is about taking life. How do you balance that? Sloan considered the question. She'd asked herself the same thing 1,000 times. You don't balance them. You integrate them. Both serve the same purpose, protecting your team. Sometimes protection means healing wounds. Sometimes it means eliminating the threat, creating those wounds. Both are acts of service. Both are necessary. But doesn't that violate your medical oath? First, do no harm. The oath is about not causing unnecessary harm, but context matters. Allowing your teammates to bang when you could prevent it, that's harm. Taking hostile lives to preserve friendly lives, that's triage. We make those calculations in medicine constantly. This is the same principle applied to a broader scope. The class continued for 6 hours. Practical exercises, medical scenarios, live fire drills. The students learning to shift between roles seamlessly. After class, Sloan returned to her office. The desk was covered with paperwork, requests from 3 VA hospitals for curriculum adoption, official interest from the Department of Defense in expanding the program, letters from other female service members asking how they could follow the same path, and one email that made her stop. Subject line, you changed everything. From HM3, Sarah Mitchell, Camp Pendleton. Petty Officer Barrett, I'm a corpsman with 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. I read about what you've done, about being both medic and marksman. My father was Army, Ranger. He taught me to shoot before he died when I was 14. I joined the Navy because I promised my mother I'd heal people, not fight. But your story showed me I don't have to choose. I can honor both parts of who I am. Thank you for proving that path exists, for showing women can serve in integrated combat roles without abandoning who we are. You literally changed my life. Sloan read it 3 times, thought about legacy, about ripples spreading outward. Her father had created ripples that reached her. Now she was creating ripples, reaching others. The cycle continuing. That evening, Sloan drove to the range overlooking Coronado Beach, where SEAL candidates trained, where her father had visited years ago, watching operators and dreaming impossible dreams about his daughter. She set up her rifle, M40A5, 1,000 meters. The shot that separated good from exceptional. The sun was setting, wind picking up off the ocean, temperature dropping, every variable working against accuracy. She calculated everything, compensated for each factor, made her adjustments, controlled her breathing, lowered her heart rate, found that perfect moment of stillness. Fired. 2 seconds of flight. The bullet crossed half a mile of evening air. She looked through the spotting scope. Perfect center mass. "Still got it, Dad," she whispered. She heard his voice in her memory, clear as the day he taught her. "You always had it, sweetheart. Better than me by the time you were 16. Now you're the best I've ever seen. I miss you." "I know, but you're not alone. You have your team, your students, your purpose. That's what I wanted. Not for you to follow my exact path, but to find your own path that honored what I taught you." Sloan packed her gear, drove back to base. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hawkins. "Mission brief tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Complex operation. Going to need everything you've got." She smiled. Typed back. "Ready, sir." 23 lives saved in 6 months. Medical interventions that would have been deaths. Combat actions that prevented friendly casualties. The numbers didn't tell the story. The faces did. Garrett, alive because of a tourniquet applied in 16 seconds. Hawkins, alive because of a 280-meter shot when it mattered most. Whitfield, home with his family because someone had both the medical skills to stabilize casualties and the tactical skills to fight through resistance. Sloan Barrett, daughter of Michael Barrett, petty officer first class, hospital corpsman, designated marksman, healer, warrior. Not one or the other, both. The way her father taught her. The legacy wasn't the shots made or the enemies killed. It was the teammates saved, the students trained, the path proven. She demonstrated that integration was possible, that you didn't have to choose between healing and fighting, that the best warriors understood both. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lives to save, new threats to eliminate, new opportunities to demonstrate what integration really meant. But tonight she slept well. The promise broken had become a promise fulfilled, just in a different form than her 16-year-old self had imagined. Her father understood, her mother had accepted, her team relied on her students learned from her, and somewhere in the future the next generation would build on what she'd proven. That service took many forms. That protection required multiple tools. That the best among them mastered both. The way Sloan Barrett had, the way her father taught her, the way the mission demanded, healer and warrior, medic and marksman, both hands always.